The integumentary system is made up of the integument, which is the skin, the largest organ in the human body, and the accessory organs to the skin. This includes the hair, the finger and toenails, and the glands associated with the skin. We have sweat glands and oil or sebaceous glands. The functions of the skin are many. The most important and the most obvious function of the integumentary system is protection. The skin provides us protection against a lot of things, including infection, chemicals, radiation, temperature changes, physical damage, and the loss of water and nutrients. In addition to protection, the skin also functions in providing sensation. It's actually a part of the nervous system, and that it can detect stimuli and send signals up to the brain so that we know what's going on in our external environment. The skin is able to detect heat and cold, touch and pressure, and pain. These signals give us an idea of what's going on in the world around us and also in the skin so that we can respond to it appropriately. The skin also plays an important role in vitamin D synthesis. Vitamin D is an important molecule in our bodies, and it's made from cholesterol. It's one of those lipid-soluble vitamins. The first step of producing vitamin D from cholesterol requires UV light to penetrate the skin to the blood vessels that contain the cholesterol. And that begins the process of converting cholesterol into vitamin D. This process of making vitamin D within our own skin works pretty well when we can be exposed to UV light, when we can be outside. Here in the northern climates, as it gets towards winter, it's harder to get UV exposure on our skin, and a lot of people who live in either very cloudy or very northern climates are at a higher risk for a vitamin D deficiency because they don't have adequate exposure to UV light. That's why it can be important for some people to take a vitamin D supplement when they can't make enough vitamin D in their own skin. There's also the concern that exposure to UV light increases the risk of skin cancer. So it's really a balancing act to make sure that we get enough exposure to UV to make the vitamin D that we need, but not too much exposure to UV because that's damaging to the skin and to the DNA in the skin cells. Our skin also plays a role in waste removal. There's not a lot of waste that's removed this way. We have other mechanisms that are more effective, but we can excrete things like alcohol, drugs, urea, ammonia, and other wastes through the sweat. When the sweat is made, those wastes get put into the sweat, and as the sweat is released onto the surface of the skin, that's one mechanism for getting rid of those wastes. The integumentary system is also important for regulating body temperature. Because the skin is what's exposed to the surrounding environment, the skin sort of plays the first role in making sure that we can help maintain our body temperature. And there are several ways that the integumentary system does this. First, the hair and the adipose tissue that we'll see as a part of the skin, or just under the skin, provide insulation to help limit temperature changes. Second, the sweat from the sweat glands helps to cool the body. The sweat goes onto the surface of the skin, and as it evaporates, remember that water in sweat has a high heat of vaporization, it uses the energy from the skin, and that cools the skin. The third way the integumentary system helps to regulate body temperature is with what's going on in the blood vessels. When your body temperature gets too high, the blood vessels in the skin dilate, or they get wider. This brings more warm blood to the surface of the skin, and the heat can radiate out of the skin. So by bringing the warm blood to the surface, we can release heat from the body. When you get too cool, then we constrict the blood vessels in the skin. That sends less blood to the surface and helps retain heat within the body. Let's take a look at the anatomy of the skin. The skin is a great organ to look at early on because it contains all of the different tissue types that we discussed as part of the histology section. We have epithelial tissue that provides the protective layer on the surface of the skin. Think for just a moment about what type of epithelium we need to have on the surface of the skin to provide protection. Stratified epithelium. We have stratified squamous epithelium on the surface of the skin to help provide protection. This outer protective layer of skin is called the epidermis. But in addition to providing protection, the skin also needs to be strong to withstand all the things it encounters from outside. Underneath the epithelium, we have a strong layer of connective tissue called the dermis. Within the dermis of the skin, we have a lot of other structures, including smooth muscle. We have smooth muscle found within the blood vessels that are in the dermis. This tissue is what allows the vessels to dilate and constrict to regulate temperature. And we have smooth muscle and a little muscle called the erector pili muscle that connects to each hair that will contract to lift the hair. Finally, the skin serves a function in sensation, so we have to have neurons that can detect the sensations of the skin and then carry that signal back up toward the brain. And since we have muscle and we have glands within the skin that need to be controlled by the nervous system, we have neurons that come from the nervous system and go out to the glands and the muscles of the skin. So in just one section of skin, we've got all four of the basic tissue types.